20-year-old student Jennifer Sanchez is suing her ex-boyfriend, 21-year-old waiter Jared Butler, for totaling her car.
Order. All rise.
Your Honor, this is case number 439 on the calendar in the matter of Sanchez versus Butler. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Ms. Sanchez, according to your complaint, you and the defendant were in a relationship and for a period of time lived together. Is that right? Mm-hmm. You claim that the defendant, without your permission, took your car and wrecked it. You had no insurance, according to you. The car was totaled, and you want him to pay you $5,000.
Right.
The defendant says he had your permission, and he has a whole bunch of excuses. One of his excuses is you should have had insurance on the car, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Tell me under what circumstances he had your car.
Well, what had happened was early in the morning, I had to be at work at 7:30, and he had misplaced his car keys. So he decided that he would just take my car to go and pick up his spare key that was at his mother's house. And while I was getting ready for work, he just grabbed my keys and walked out the door. And right before he closed the door, he just yelled that he was going to take my car before I could react or anything.
Well, if you had time to react, he had taken your car before and had driven your car before, is that right?
Right.
You wouldn't have said no.
I would have taken him.
Why?
Because I was nearly ready and I had to be to work and...
But you would have had to have taken him and then come back, right? So there would have been no point in you taking him. Ms. Sanchez, I want you to answer my questions honestly. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
There would have been no point in you saying, just a minute, I'll drive you to your mother's house and then bring you back in order for you to pick up your car, right?
Right.
He had driven your car before. There wouldn't have been a problem.
Right.
So you grabbed her car keys.
No, Your Honor. She gave me permission to use her car keys, Your Honor.
I'll decide whether she gave you permission.
Okay.
You grabbed her car keys and you got into the car.
Yes.
And what happened?
I headed towards my mother's house to get my spare key from my vehicle. On the way back, I got in a car accident.
You got into a car accident that was your fault.
It's proclaimed as my fault, yes.
First of all, you have to speak slowly. You have to speak so I can hear you. You got into a car accident that was your fault.
Yes.
How?
It was said that I ran a red light, and I got in a car accident.
No, your voice trails off at the end, sir. I heard ran a red light, and then
I got in a car accident.
you hit another car.
Yes.
Did you run a red light?
The light was yellow.
You ran a red light. Were you given a citation?
No.
You claim, sir, that your driving license has been suspended
Restricted.
or restricted. Why was your driver's license restricted?
Because I was driving a vehicle that was uninsured.
How long had you lived together?
At this time, 1 month.
Now, had you ever had a discussion with her about insurance?
About 9 months before this, and her and I broke up and we got back together. California law assumed she had insurance.
But you never questioned her.
No.
Now, you have insurance on your car.
Yes.
Did you report this accident to your insurance company?
Yes, I did. And they said they wouldn't cover me to drive someone else's vehicle. My insurance only covers me to drive my vehicle.
Really?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that the way it happens here?
Oh, no, I've never had an accident.
It was always my understanding that if you had insurance, that your insurance covers you even if you're driving somebody else's car.
That's what we had thought. And her father and myself, we had called my insurance company, and we've been fighting them. And they said that they wouldn't cover me to drive her vehicle because it was uninsured, and they're not going to pay for it. I was willing to pay the deductible to get it fixed, but they wouldn't cover it.
Could your car have been fixed?
No. It was written off as a total loss by more than one place.
What year car was it?
It was a 96.
What's your insurance carrier's name? Let me see. Is this the name of your broker?
Yes.
Good morning. This is Judge Judy Scheindlin. To whom am I speaking? I'm in the middle of trying a case, and I'd like some information from you. Okay, I have one of your insured before me. His name is Jared Butler. Are you familiar with that person? Okay. My question is this on his policy. Does that policy cover him if he is driving someone else's car? Liability only. It won't cover collision. I see. Well, that's really what I want to know, because that's exactly what happened. Okay. Very good. You've been a tremendous help to me. Thank you. Bye-bye. Can I see the bills for your car, proof of loss?
It's right here with the letter we sent him.
Mr. Butler, I give you 30 seconds or less to explain to me why you should not be responsible for this.
I just feel I shouldn't be responsible for her negligence. She drove her car without insurance. California state law requires her to be insured. She shouldn't allow somebody to use her car or be driving to work every day, driving her nephews, allowing us to drive to Big Bear in a car that's uninsured.
So you believe
I don't think I should be penalized for her negligence.
So you believe that she is the proximate cause of her car being totaled because
Absolutely
she
not.
should have had insurance?
It was my fault that I was in a car accident. It's my responsibility for the accident. It's her responsibility for the insurance.
Right.
So I'm not blaming her for the accident. I'm taking responsibility for the accident.
How are you taking responsibility for the accident?
Well, prior to all this, her father and I had been trying to settle on an agreement, and I told him I would pay the $1,000 deductible for him, and I could work out some payment plan, and he didn't want that. And because he wanted to go to court and see whose fault it was, really.
It's your fault. You ran a red light. Wasn't even as if you were the innocent in this car accident. You were the guilty person in this car accident. What about the car that you hit?
They had sent her father some notice saying that they are $5,700 they want for the car to be fixed.
Yes.
That's what happened as far as that goes.
They actually sent me the notice. They're coming after me.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jennifer Sanchez says ex-boyfriend Jared Butler owes her for totaling her car. Jared says he had permission to drive the vehicle.
Now, just for my own information, why didn't you have insurance?
I actually did have insurance, but I wasn't aware of it. My father had let me believe that I had been canceled from their policy because he wanted me to pay the insurance bill, and I couldn't afford it at the time.
Yes. So did you have insurance or not?
Yes, I did, and I didn't find that out until I'd purchased this new car to go and put it on the policy.
So you have insurance? You mean if I didn't ask that question, you weren't going to tell me?
No, I would have said
When were you going to tell me?
when he was done relaying his story.
So what was your out-of-pocket expense?
My out-of-pocket expense has been nothing so far except for I had to buy the new car, which was $9,000.
Right, but your insurance is going to... You do have insurance.
Right.
What's the deductible on the insurance?
I don't know that.
Well, if you don't know that, Miss Sanchez, how do you expect me to make a judgment? I have to compensate you because clearly this accident was his fault.
Right.
And he should be prepared to cover you for any of your out-of-pocket expense. And if you have a car that has a $500 deductible or a $1,000 deductible, that he pays. You're suing him for $5,000. How am I supposed to know what your deductible is on this insurance that your father carried for you but didn't tell you about? I'm sure he told you about it before you walked into court.
Well, I didn't find that out until I went to get my new car insured under his policy.
Who is this person here with you?
This is my mom.
Do you know?
I do now.
Perfect. Stand up, please. Ms. Sanchez.
Yes.
Would you please tell me what the deductible is on this insurance that your husband wisely carried for his daughter?
I actually don't have that information as well. Jennifer and myself were not aware until she purchased the new vehicle that my husband, in fact, did continue paying her insurance bill for her. Because she's a full-time student, we would never consider allowing her to drive a vehicle without insurance.
Very smart. But how am I supposed to know what kind of judgment to render in her favor? What were her losses?
Well, because of my husband's feeling, I believe, in talking directly to me was that because Jared did, in fact, not have permission to drive the car on that day.
Yes, he did. I'm telling you he
Okay,
did.
okay, indirectly, I'll agree.
I'm telling you he did.
Alrighty. Indirectly, I feel, in my opinion, that he did not, because she did not have a chance to respond.
I'm telling you that that didn't happen. Because if he had taken the car without her permission, she gets on the phone, she calls the police and said, somebody just took my car without my permission. He's driven the car before. He drove the car before when she had no knowledge about this other insurance policy. She knew that she didn't have insurance. She let him drive the car. She drove the car herself.
That's true.
Okay.
Jared has driven the car one time before to Big Bear, as he stated,
Just a second.
but never without her.
Trust me, he's driven the car before. Maybe when they went out on a date, he drove. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Went out to dinner or to a movie, he
Never
drove.
taking it upon himself to get in the car and take off.
Listen to me. Don't be naive. Don't be naive. I left my keys. I can't find my keys. I'm running off to my mom's to pick up a set of keys. I'll be back in 2 minutes before you have to leave for work. And whether she handed him the keys or he went in her bag and took the keys, that's what happened. I don't care what your husband's feelings were. Your husband feels as if he should pay for the whole car and not put it through his insurance?
Actually, it's not the entire amount of value of the car. It's what we could get through small claims court. The value of the car exceeds the $5,000.
How much did your insurance company pay you for the car?
We did not report it to the insurance company because she was not aware, nor was I, that she actually was covered. My husband even told me that she did not have insurance.
When were you made aware of it?
When she purchased her new vehicle.
When was that?
Almost 5 months after this accident occurred.
Approximately 4 weeks ago.
Something wrong with this picture over here.
What-
Your husband knows that he has insurance for some bizarre reason, which is maybe why he's not here. And any reasonable person would say, I'm going to put in my claim right away, because how else am I going to get paid for this car?
The reason that I can give you for that is because from the beginning, there was not a problem as far as Jared agreeing to pay for the damages that he had himself incurred on Jennifer's vehicle. That was never a problem, but as months and months went by, he then said that he was only partially responsible. Now he's saying he's not responsible at all.
Oh, he is responsible.
Of
he's
course,
made up
we
a
know
good-
that,
He's
but he doesn't
responsible.
seem
The
to
only
know that.
question is how much. I mean, I can understand your husband saying, listen, if I report this to my insurance company, my premiums are going to go up, and they're going to go up and stay up, which is a problem. Now, that's a reason. That's a reason saying, why should I be penalized when he caused the accident? And by my insurance going up, all because of his accident, I'm not going to report it to my insurance company and let him take care of it. That's a reason that I might buy.
Right, and
Right,
that's
that's
exactly
exactly
correct.
what
Well, then
happened.
why don't you just say that to me instead of this hocus pocus? My husband
she
didn't
was,
tell
in
me.
fact, not
My
aware.
husband didn't tell me. What?
I don't understand it, Judge. I don't understand.
I still didn't get a straight answer from you, Miss Sanchez. Were you supposed to have had insurance on this car?
As far
Look
as
at
I
me.
knew,
Were you supposed to have insured the car yourself? Just answer my question.
yes.
Yes. Did you tell your father you had insured the car yourself?
No.
When were you supposed to have put insurance on this car yourself?
I was supposed to have done it a while back, but I could
Why
not
didn't
aff-
you?
I couldn't afford to.
Did you tell your father you couldn't afford
Yes,
to?
he knew I couldn't.
No, don't tell me what you knew. Did you have a discussion with him and say to him, I cannot afford to maintain insurance on this car?
Yes.
When?
It was probably about a year before this accident happened.
Did your father say you have to maintain insurance on the car?
Yes, he did,
So why didn't you?
because I couldn't afford to.
Then you don't drive. What happens if you have an accident? Happens all the time. You have no insurance to cover your car. And what about the people that you injure?
I would have been responsible.
And how are you going to pay for that if you couldn't even pay for the insurance?
Well, I would have had to get a job.
I thought you have a job.
I had a job, and I lost it.
You don't drive a car without insurance. Mrs. Sanchez,
Yes.
I quite frankly can understand why your husband would not want to cover this part of the damage.
Correct.
Your husband, however, since the car is insured, is probably going to have to cover the people who he hit, unless you want to be out that money too. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand the legalities of that, but morally, I think that's a little...
He's going to have to be responsible because he's not going to do it.
We've clearly found that to be the
Right.
case.
But I believe that your daughter is partially responsible for what happened here. I believe that he is more responsible for what happened, but your daughter actually drove a car that she knew was not insured. And she did allow him to drive that car, knowing that that car was not insured. When did you purchase this car?
My father purchased it for me about a year before. I had only had it a year.
You have the purchase price of the car?
I don't.
Let me see all your papers, please. Well, the car is pretty well totaled, that's for sure. Nobody was hurt in this car accident? That's really lucky.
If you read the police report, Jared states in that the reason he may have ran the red light was because heading westbound, the sun was in his eyes.
I don't care why he ran a red light. He ran a red light. I know he ran
That's
a red
correct.
light. He knows he ran a red light. He's in a big hurry.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Who did her father buy the car from?
He actually purchased it from his sister, which would be Jennifer's aunt.
How much did he pay for the car?
He said $6,800.
Yeah, that's true. That's correct.
So he paid her $6,800?
To his sister, yes.
And the car had 4,300 miles on it? Okay, and the car needed a paint job?
Yes.
So say the car was worth $4,200. And I believe that you had some responsibility with regard to this for driving a vehicle that was uninsured, at least uninsured according to you. I do not believe, Mrs. Sanchez, that your husband has to absorb his problem. And it was his problem. Should she have to absorb his problem? Partially, but certainly not your husband. You and your husband would have to absorb his problem by reporting this to your insurance company, which means your rates clearly would go up. The car was driven by someone other than a member of your family, was clearly involved in an accident that was totally the fault of the defendant. And your insurance premiums would probably go up permanently, or at least for the next 5 years. So I believe that your daughter bears 25% of the responsibility, somewhere around that, and I'm awarding you $3,200. Judgment for the plaintiff.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
40-year-old general contractor Wayne McWaters is suing 47-year-old matchmaker Terry Gibbons for not providing a satisfactory date.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please.
Yes, this is case number 489 on the calendar in the matter of McWaters versus Gibbons. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Mr. McWaters, the defendant runs a dating service,
Yes, she does.
and you signed on with the defendant's dating service. According to your complaint, you had one phone contact with someone arranged by the defendant's dating service. You were unhappy with that phone call, and you want a refund of the $1,500 that you paid pursuant to your contract with her. That's what the case is about.
Well, yeah, it goes much deeper than that, though.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you get deeper, but that's generally what you want. You want your money back because you didn't like the first contact that you had.
No, that isn't the real reason why I want my money back. It was I gave her a specific criteria. That was the point of me going to the dating service. I wanted to match somebody who had been through the same experiences in life that I have been through. Kind of the same mindset, if you will. I'm 40 years old. I understand things a certain way in life, and I would like somebody in my life that understands things the same way.
Okay, let me stop you for a minute. We have to do this in my orderly fashion. So you went to her service, and you had a discussion.
Yes,
And I assume as part of the discussion you told her who you were looking for.
exactly.
And that's what you had started to tell me before.
Right,
Certain criteria that you had, which is
Yeah.
perfectly reasonable.
right.
What did you tell her?
I told her that I was looking for a woman who had been in a long-term relationship, married. I was very specific about that. Somebody who had been married for a long term. I specifically told her around 10 years, somebody who had a committed relationship. Also somebody who didn't have the live-to-work philosophy, somebody who worked to live, somebody who liked to have fun in life. My ex-wife liked to work quite a bit, quite the business person. And I like to have a good time in life. I was very specific on meeting somebody who didn't have their own business and had been in a long-term marriage, a committed relationship.
Okay. And she said she understood that, and then I assume she said we will
Well, not only did she say she understood it, she said she had several people off the top of her head that she knew that she could refer me to.
So you signed on?
Yes.
May I see a copy of the contract you signed?
This is the judge's copy of all of that.
I'm sure you both have a copy.
I have several different, I have a couple different things here.
His.
Hers. I have one more paper that you might find interesting.
Just one second. Okay. I'm looking at the qualities or characteristics you especially want in a match. Knows who she is, what she wants, takes care of her grooming, health, thinking about life, and your role in it. Does that sound right?
My main priority, and I was very emphatic about this when I spoke to her, is somebody who's been through, which is very important to me, a marriage for a long period of time, who understands what commitment is and understands what working things out
So
is.
let's say that's what you told her, because this
Okay.
whole thing revolves around the following. You signed a contract.
Right.
And your contract clearly states, we admonish you not to refuse an introduction to a member who meets your original specifications or mutually agreed modifications. Such refusal may result in reducing your number of matches.
Right.
Okay?
And I'll bring this back to this point that that's not the issue. The issue is the phone call after meeting the person. I can understand that not everything works out.
So what happened? Tell me what happened about the first match. Was
Well, the
that by
first match
phone?
was I called the girl up on the phone, seemed like a very nice girl. I asked her if she had been in any long-term relationships, asked her specifically if she had been married. She said no. I asked her if what she did for work. She had her own business. Again, seemed like a very nice girl. But through having relationships in my life, I understand you learn a lot by having a long-term relationship. I had been very specific with Terry on what I wanted, and this was across the board, 180 degrees from somebody that I wanted to date. I was not angry about it. I wasn't rude to the girl at all on the phone. In fact, I tried to call her a couple of times, and she wasn't there when she said she was going to be there when I called her. And this is one of the things that you learn by having a relationship, is when somebody says they're going to call, you are
Maybe
there.
she didn't like your questions, because she too clearly wanted to meet somebody.
Absolutely.
So it would seem logical to conclude that if you made a time to call her and she wasn't there, she didn't want to speak to you. And if she didn't want to
Well,
speak
maybe
to you...
that's your logical conclusion.
No,
My
it is.
logical
It's a
conclusion-
logical conclusion.
No,
Let
it
me
isn't.
let me tell you why, Mr. McWaters. It's a logical woman's conclusion. I want you to trust me on that one. If a woman speaks to a man on the phone and he sounds interesting, and she has signed up for a service, so she's really open to meeting people, and if he says, I'm going to call at 7 o'clock at night, she's sitting at the phone at 6:30, just in case he's a little early.
Well, there are a lot of people out there in this world that have great intentions that don't follow through on those intentions.
You know, there's a male part of the brain, and there's a female part of the brain. I want you to trust me. They're not the same.
Okay.
A woman will be there at 6:30 to get that. Let all the women raise your hands. Anybody disagree with that they would be there at 6:30 waiting for that phone call? Now, a guy, on the other hand, if he starts to watch something at his buddy's house, like the Discovery Channel or a football game or something, he would say, look at his watch, say, gee, it's 10 after 7. I was supposed to be home at 7 o'clock. A woman, never. Doesn't happen. So if she wasn't there when she was supposed to get your phone call, sir, it's not because she wasn't married before. It was because there was something in the conversation that she had with you that suggested that this was not going to be a match. In any event, after you tried to call this woman several times again, you called her. And tell me about the conversation that you had with
I
her.
called her and left a message on her machine first that I was surprised that she set me up with this woman that didn't fit the criteria that I had told her about, to give me a call back so we could talk about it. 2 days went by. I never received a call back. I called her again and started questioning her about the girl and how I ended up getting set up with this person. After being extremely direct with her inside the office on what I wanted.
Okay, you keep saying that. If you don't think I got the message, I got the message. Tell me what she said to you that turned you off.
What she said was, you're an extremely rude person. And she said it to me 3 times, and I said, how am I being rude? I'm speaking to you direct. I'm not yelling at you, and I'm not swearing at you. But yet you're calling me a rude person. And she said, well, it's just the way you're questioning me. You're being very rude. And I said, well, wait a minute, we're crossing a line here. This is getting kind of dangerous because you're calling me a rude person. This is scaring me because you've got $1,500 of my money, And if you're going to call me a rude person, then that means setting me up with somebody is now going to fall into the questionable stage, if you will. And with that, she said, well, the way you're talking to me now, I would be hard-pressed to set you up with anybody.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Wayne McWaters says matchmaker Terry Gibbons was given specific criteria for the women he wanted to date. Wayne claims he was given the complete opposite.
Now, Ms. Gibbons, tell me about the conversation.
Perhaps Mr. McWaters didn't mean to be rude to me, but he was being very sharp and very, why didn't you give me what I asked for and so forth. He didn't tell me at the time that he wanted somebody absolutely who'd been married. He did say he wanted somebody who'd been in a relationship. The match had been in a relationship. She had lived with somebody for 3 years.
I want to know about the conversation that
Okay,
you
what
had.
I said to him was, if you're rude to me, it makes it hard for me to convince somebody else to meet you. I never said I wouldn't try to match him or anything.
No, he
and I
didn't say you
would.
said that.
But I did tell him that if he was being rude to me, it was going to be hard for me to tell somebody else he was a gentleman. So I said, please treat me nicely, and I'll certainly be able to do a better job of matching you. And that was the extent of it, and I never expected that to result in him thinking I wouldn't match him. I have 2 other matches for him right now.
I would
But
not
it's-
be here
if
today
somebody
if she
is-
did not say to me at that time, and let me make this real clear, if she did not say to me those words, I would be hard-pressed to match you up with anybody. And once, this isn't like
Hard-pressed
a regular
to-
business transaction.
Just a second.
Yeah,
I believe that.
right.
I believe that. I believe that that's what got you, and that's what's going to get you out of this contract. I do believe, Ms. Gibbons, that you did say to him, if you can continue to use that kind of tone with me, I'm going to be hard-pressed to introduce you to anybody.
No, what I said was I would be hard-pressed to convince somebody that he was a gentleman.
Well, if you would be hard-pressed to convince someone that he was a gentleman, that he's not going to get his $1,500 worth.
But my daughter does the matchmaking, the actual contact and so forth. She's
down.
here. And she's perfectly willing to work with him, and she's the one who usually does those connections anyway.
Ms. Gibbons, how long have you been in business?
I've been doing this for over 25 years.
Okay. If you've been doing it for a long time, occasionally, I assume, you run across somebody that you know you're going to have difficulty with.
I pride myself on having worked those things through. And yes, I have run into that before, and I've usually worked it through with the person.
You're not going to work it through with Mr. McWaters. I think he's probably making a mistake. But it seems to me the only thing that you did thus far was give him a phone number to call, one person.
Actually, we don't just hand somebody a phone number. We call the lady, we tell her all about the
I
gentleman.
understand that. He's not going to get all his money back. But it seems to be good practice that you say, listen, I don't want to deal with you. You're being rude to me on the phone. You'd be rude to other people. I don't want to introduce somebody who is rude. You don't want to fool any of your ladies, do you? No. And if you have interaction with a client who appears to be rude, strong-headed, not a gentleman, you wouldn't want to introduce him to some woman who has given you $1,500 to find her a gentlemanly person, right?
We
So it
actually
seems to
offer
me-
counseling for that, but yes, essentially that's true.
Let me explain something to you, Ms. Gibbons. He's 40. He's cooked. Finished. So, Mr. McWaters, hey, Mr. McWaters, I think you're probably making a mistake. She doesn't seem like one of these fly-by-night operations. But I think that that one phrase, that you would be hard-pressed to tell any of her people that you were a gentleman, was a breach of your agreement.
Absolutely.
However, you did accept some service from her.
One phone call.
Well, one phone call, but that one phone call involved some work on her part. I mean, that is a service. She's in the service business, right? One other thing, Mr. McWaters. Sometimes people don't necessarily have to have a long-term marriage in order to be a suitable mate. You're 40.
Oh, I understand that. But,
So you have to
but
be
as you
more
get
flexible.
older, you tend to play the odds, if you will. And the odds tell you that you want to find somebody who's had the same experience as you in life. That way you're going to be closer to a connection, if you will.
You got to loosen up a little bit, sir.
Okay.
Open yourself up a little bit. You look like a lovely man. Be a little more flexible.
Thank you.
Okay? I'm directing that the defendant return $1,300 to you of your initial $1,500 fee, so the judgment is for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,300. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I'm a bit disappointed I didn't have a chance to make things work out with Mr. McWaters. I believe I could have.
Experiences are the best part of life, and jump out there and get your feet wet.
And now the next case.
All parties on McQueen versus Arsenault. Step forward, please.
44-year-old flight attendant Ashley McQueen is suing 34-year-old advertising executive Jennifer Arsenault for the cost of 2 airline tickets. Jennifer says Ashley's lawsuit is bogus.
All right, this case is a little convoluted, but let me see if I can piece together what I do understand. Ms. McQueen, you met the defendant when you went for an interview about taking some photographs of you and a photo shoot. You got into a discussion with the defendant. According to you, after some discussion of her personal life, you agreed, since you work for the airlines and get some of these companion tickets, to give her these companion tickets. It is your claim that there was cost involved, direct cost to you, and you want her to be responsible for the direct cost, what you actually paid for those tickets. The defendant says that, as far as she's concerned, those vouchers were a gift to her. Okay, what were you doing at this interview?
Okay, I met with the defendant. We had the interview at this agency. During our interview, the defendant did get into her personal life. She cried. I told her at the time, when she asked if I had access to discounted tickets, I would let her know. So a couple days had passed. I then called and left a message. She had already gone to New York to pick up her son. She got the message, called me from New York, and said, yes, I could use the companion tickets to get my son and I back to Denver, and maybe we can do your composite, which is like a business card with your photos. So I FedExed the tickets to her. She returned to Denver using the tickets. I called. She said they would not credit my visa, the $350 that I had charged the day that I met with her, because I did charge for the photo shoot.
You did have a photo session.
I never had the photo session. I paid for a photo session.
But you never had it?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
So when the defendant said, well, we cannot credit your visa, then I called back, spoke to her boss, and her boss said he
Tell
was
me
very...
what her boss said.
Okay.
Were you ultimately credited for this $350?
Yes, I was.
All right, so that's out. Let's get back to the tickets.
Okay. She, was fired. She called and said, I've been fired from my job. I will pay you for the tickets.
How much did it actually cost you? I assume you have the bill there.
I do, and I have, for the tickets themselves, were $141.60.
For all of them?
For all, yes, all.
It's a bargain.
4.
Okay. You want to explain to me why you're suing for $734.44?
I am suing her for the lowest fare that it would have cost her to actually buy a ticket, just from the aggravation of 8 months trying to find her.
You don't get that.
Okay.
That's an interesting theory. But I reject it. Your out-of-pocket expenses are $141.60.
Well, not completely out of pocket, because I had to FedEx the tickets to her.
How much did that cost?
That was $6.24.
Okay, what else?
Certified mail, $3.20.
Okay. $147.84. Go.
Okay, hello, Your Honor. First of all, when Ms. McQueen came into the office, I did interview her, and actually we had a nice chat. We got along good.
I'm not interested.
Okay, I don't blame you. I understand.
Could you put that
I didn't
down?
ask her for the tickets, and she had called the secretary and told her that she did have tickets available for me. My office did, in fact, reimburse her the complete $350 for the photo shoot. Which,
She didn't take a photo shoot.
Right, but we reimbursed her for that amount, which we don't normally reimburse.
Who
anyone.
cares?
Okay. The misunderstanding was between composite cards and a photo shoot. I said I would pay for her composite cards, which are $250.
She didn't have a photo shoot. She didn't have composite cards.
But this
They
is
gave her
prior.
back-
This is the
They gave her
agreement.
back her money.
We gave her back her money.
Before.
And I don't argue.
No, it didn't come out of your pocket. The company gave back the money.
Well, actually, the composite cards were going to come out of my pocket.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Okay. They gave her back her money because there was no photo shoot, which would be
offered
used
her-
for the cards.
Right,
But the
okay,
350
exactly. That's irrelevant.
I'm speaking. But the $350 you didn't pay, the company reimbursed her, decided that they didn't want any aggravation, they didn't want any grief. Here's your $350 back. You didn't take pictures. We didn't expend any time. Let's get to the airline tickets.
And I'm not in disagreement with that, with the 141.60. It was the 787 that I didn't feel I owed her, especially because of the fact that she harassed me, called my office several times. The entire situation was
Well, did you ever say to her?
It was a misunderstanding.
Did you ever say to her, I'm prepared to give you the 141.60?
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
When did you say that to her?
Oh, gosh, shortly after, probably a couple months after.
What'd you wait so long for?
I didn't even have a way to get a hold of her for a long time. I was back in New York for a while.
All right. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $147.84, which covers your overnighting the tickets. Thanks.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
38-year-old plumber James Livingston is suing co-worker 33-year-old carpenter Douglas Joseph for shooting at him with a nail gun and body slamming him.
Order. All rise.
Your Honor, this is case number 471 on the calendar in the matter of Livingston versus Joseph. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Mr. Livingston, you are a plumber by trade, is that correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Joseph, you are a carpenter by trade.
That's correct.
According to your complaint, Mr. Livingston, two of you didn't get along very well, but there came a time when you claimed that Mr. Joseph assaulted you.
That's correct, Your Honor.
And on what date did this incident occur?
February 11th of 2000.
When had the difficulty between the two of you started?
The difficulty started prior to that job on another job.
So you knew him from before this job?
Correct.
So when you found yourselves working together on this project, that wasn't a happy time?
No.
Now tell me what happened on February 11th.
February 11th, I arrived on a job site approximately 10 after 8. When I walked in, I was confronted by him saying that I had left the driveway open for you, but I guess you're going to wear the skirt today. And I ignored it, turned around.
What does that mean? I guess you're going to wear the skirt.
It just that I'm a wimp or a wuss. And approximately 10:30, I heard from the other side of the shear wall, was about 17 feet away.
What's a shear wall?
A shear wall is a wall between another room and it's half-inch plywood. He was up on the top of the railing and he was shooting down at me with a nail gun. And I have, Your Honor, the evidence of what a nail gun looks like. This is the type of nail gun that could maim or kill me.
Is that the nail gun that of a similar type that he was using on
Correct.
that day? Okay, go ahead.
And as that shot at the wall, a rack of these nails can be shot off in about 7 seconds. I had then come around the wall. He was standing there with an evil grin on his face, looking down at me. I called him very obscenity names, and I said, "Why did you shoot that nail gun at me?" Then he says, "I'm going to come down there and kick your..." He come all the way down the ladder, threw his belt off his waist, first nail gun, and come down the ladder, got into my face, and then I backed up, and I turned around, and when I turned around, he had grabbed me from the backside and went against the stud wall, and that's when the wall had hit the side of my ribs.
And you have photographs of your
Yes,
injuries?
I do.
I'd like to see them, please. Well, I can't see anything around your midsection, sir, because you have a girdle on.
That's for the broken rib. That's a pressure bandage.
All right. Do you have a hospital report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
If Your Honor, if I may call my wife, if we could, for all the pain and suffering and...
Not necessary, sir. Just show me the hospital report.
It's right there. Give her the whole packet.
Them are all the correspondence with the hospital.
Now we'll hear your version of the event, sir.
Well, it started actually in '99, probably about a month beforehand, and one of my carpenters nailed through that shear panel and hit his pipe, and he didn't mean to hit his pipe, but when he found out that he hit his pipe...
I heard about that. That's when all the bad blood started between the two of you.
Yeah,
Let's get to February 11th.
Very, very irate. And
Let's get to February 11th, sir.
Okay, a day before that, he pulled up to the job site and wanted more access to the driveway, and we were all up in scaffold in the air, 30, 40 feet in the air, and it wasn't possible for us to come down. He became irate and red-faced at that time, took his car, slammed it in reverse, and backed up, missing my vehicle by inches. This is from other people like Matt.
All right, he
who heard
missed
this.
your car. Didn't hit your car. Missed
No,
your car.
he missed my car. Came in and cussing and
So
screaming.
he didn't have access to get his truck in there easily the day before, so he was angry.
He was very angry.
Okay, so now let's get to February 11th.
Okay, February 11th. He came with an attitude like he did the day before.
So he was angry.
Yes. I did shoot the nails.
I know you did. That's what you said.
Okay.
You said you shot the nails, and not only did you shoot the nails, but you said something to him when you were shooting the nails. According to you.
Yeah, I was jokingly trying to encourage him to get out of the mood he was in. When I said dance, pipe boy. And,
Right, that's what you said. And that, Mr. Joseph, is what, quite frankly, pardon the pun on words, put the nail in your coffin.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you why. Because there had been, evidently, bad blood between the two of you. You knew he was angry. You were not trying to cajole him into a better mood. Did you think that by pointing that gun and shooting in his direction, although not at him, that you were going to make him feel better by saying, dance, pipe boy? Did you think you were going to make him feel better?
May I respond in defense? 2 weeks prior...
I want you to answer my question. Did you think that you were going to make him feel better by shooting the nails from that gun in his direction and saying, dance, pipe boy?
I honestly did, because he always is joking around with everybody on the job site.
But he wasn't joking around with you that day, sir, because you say right here in your answer, Mr. Joseph, it was evident that he was in his usual hostile mood.
I was trying to change his mood.
By shooting?
Yes.
By shooting those things in his
for
direction?
joking around with him. May I defend myself? Because 2 weeks prior to this, I was building a water heater platform, and I was having trouble reaching a nail, so I handed him my nail gun, and he took the nail gun and pointed it at his coworker's head. Matt Taylor was my witness to this.
Yes.
And he pointed up to his head, so if he's saying that it is so deadly of a weapon, why is he pointing at this gun that was live to the head of someone? When I shoot a nail gun during the day, people walk behind the walls all the time when I hold it up close. I was 35 feet away. There was nowhere for the round to get him at all. He was in perfect safety. Actually, I thought he was in the garage. He was in perfect safety.
You couldn't have thought he was in the garage, sir, because your statement, dance pipe boy, was directed to him. He was the only pipe boy around.
I knew he was in the general vicinity, and I knew he could overhear me when I said that.
Oh, Mr. Joseph, come on. You precipitated this altercation. You started this altercation.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. James Livingston says coworker Douglas Joseph body slammed him. Douglas says he was only playing.
So now you've shot this nail gun in his general direction, although not according to you at him, and words are exchanged. You're up on the second floor, correct?
That's correct.
He's on the first floor. Did he come up to the second floor where you were at?
No, ma'am. He...
No, the answer is no. Did you exit the second floor and come down to the first floor?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Because he was calling me down. He was calling me down with profanity and telling me he was going to kick my...
So that seems like a perfect time for me to stay where I am. Somebody is threatening you. Somebody, I mean, I see the way you look. I see, how old are you?
I'm 33 years old.
How old are you?
38,
Okay. How much do you weigh?
162 pounds.
How much do you weigh?
250 pounds.
So it seems to me you don't have much of a risk from him coming up to you and beating you with his plunger, right?
Right.
So you come down from the second floor because he was calling you names. And what happened when you came downstairs, Mr. Joseph?
We did stand toe-to-toe, and he was blurting out vulgar language at the whole time. And I said, "You're not worth going to jail for." I turned and walked away, turned my cheek and walked the other way. And he blurts out, I can't even say it on TV, or he's bleeping things. But I became angry at that point when I turned and I went to push him. And as I pushed him, I tripped and fell on this hardware that he was mumbling about. And he jumped on my back and started choking me. And so...
So you went to push him.
I went to push him,
And
but I fell.
no, you went to push him. That's not what you said. You said you went to push him, and as I did, I fell.
Right.
Then you're down on the ground, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
You're down, flat down on the ground.
I'm down on my knees and my hands.
And what happened?
He jumped my back and started choking my neck. I couldn't breathe.
Yes.
So then I feared for my life. I grabbed his sweatshirt, and I couldn't breathe, so I tried to wreck myself, and I pushed his back into the wall. And at that point, I gained control. And I put him in head and arm and around his body, and that's it. No punches were done.
Well, he was injured, sir. He had a fractured rib.
Yeah, Dewey, the electrician, told me he was loading his four-wheeler and broke his rib doing that. He told me.
Don't tell. I'm not interested in what somebody else told you, sir. That's hearsay. That's hearsay. Now, he went to the hospital on the 11th. What's 16:45 hours?
That's 4:45 in the afternoon.
May I introduce Matt Taylor? He's my witness.
I saw the argument in the morning.
You saw it from the beginning, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, I did. I saw him.
Where was Mr. Joseph?
He was upstairs with me, second floor.
And did you see him with a gun similar to that in his hand?
Yes, I did.
Did you have any conversation with him, Mr. Taylor, prior to him pointing the gun downward and shooting off a round?
No.
He didn't say to you, look what I'm going to do, or I'm just fooling around?
No.
How many rounds did he fire off?
3?
When he fired off those rounds, did you see the plaintiff?
No, I didn't. He was behind the shear wall.
Did you ask Mr. Joseph what he was doing?
No.
Well, wouldn't that seem like a logical thing to ask?
Well, I knew that I knew Mr. Livingston wasn't in any danger from
That's
the nail.
not what I asked you. You saw the defendant shooting off rounds of that gun in a way that was not meant to do any business that you were there to do, right?
Right.
Well, what did you think he was doing, sir?
I thought he was messing around.
Messing around with what?
A nail gun.
Messing around how? Just look at me, sir. Messing around how?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
Well, I didn't know what he was doing. He was shooting off the nail gun. I knew he was messing around with the plumber.
Okay, so you know he was messing around with the plumber with the nail gun.
Yes. Yes, sir.
There we go. So after he shot off 3 rounds with the nail gun, what did you hear him say?
I heard him say, "Dance, pipe boy."
Now, you were on the 2nd floor. Do you see how quietly you said that to me, dance, pipe boy? I want you to use your voice, Mr. Taylor, and in a voice that replicates how Mr. Joseph communicated dance, pipe boy to the plaintiff. Why don't you tell me how that sounded from the 2nd floor? Let's hear it, Mr. Taylor.
He said, "Dance, pipe boy."
You want me to put you up on the 2nd floor and see if I could hear that? With all the other noise that's going on in a house that's being renovated? You want to try that one more time?
He said, "Dance, pipe boy."
That sounds more like it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You came downstairs and took off your belt to fight.
Negative.
Oh, yes. You started it. And whatever happened after that, you deserved it.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. James Livingston says co-worker Douglas Joseph body slammed him. Douglas says he was only playing.
And when he said dance pipe boy, see how you laughed and you smiled when you said that to me? Did you smile?
No, I didn't.
You didn't smile. Did you laugh?
No.
Was he laughing?
No.
Wasn't?
No.
And then what did you see, sir?
I saw Mr. Livingston come out from around the corner, and for a while he was taunting Doug, lots
Cursing
of verbal
at him.
abuse, cursing at him.
Cursing at him.
And then I saw Doug he went downstairs.
Did he go downstairs by ladder?
Yes.
And did he put down the gun before he started to descend the ladder?
Yes.
And what about his tool belt?
He took that off. He took that off when he got down there.
Did he take that off as soon as he got down from the ladder?
No.
So he was wearing it.
Yes.
And when did he take off his tool belt?
The second time he went down, when...
Second time?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about the first time he went down.
The first time he went down was after Mr. Livingston started calling him a bunch of names. He went down, he said that it wasn't worth it, came back up, and then Mr. Livingston started yelling at him some more, and he went back down, and then he took off his tool belt.
May I respond in defense to myself? He was he was saying that I knew you weren't going to do anything about it. Like he wanted to fight, and I didn't want to fight. I tried to walk away from it the whole time.
You could have.
I could have.
Oh, you could have, Mr. Joseph. All you had to do was not come downstairs the second time and take off your belt.
How much verbal abuse can someone take?
Do you hear that?
Yeah, I just...
Do you hear that?
When it goes on for months, they've had 5 complaints about him with other trades and everything, about how vulgar his language is and how...
That's why, Mr. Joseph, I don't believe you when you say to me that you shot the gun at him in an attempt to change his mood from foul to fair. I don't believe you. What I think you wanted to do was just give him a good one. And you not only shot this gun at him, which could place him at risk because, let's say, it happened that one of those nails hit another nail, hit a pipe, ricocheted, caused some damage. You would have been very sorry that that happened. You would have said it was an accident. I didn't mean to hurt him. But bottom line was, you started it. And whatever happened after that, whatever foul language he was using, whatever names he was calling you or your mother, whatever he was doing, you deserved it. So you didn't come down once, so you didn't tell me that. You actually went upstairs without taking off your belt. According to this gentleman, you came downstairs and took off your belt to fight.
Negative.
Oh, yes, you did. You took off your belt in order to fight, because otherwise there is absolutely no reason for you to take off your belt. You didn't do it the first time.
I believe I did do it the first time, actually.
Not according to your witness. According to your witness, he said you went up the first time, right? With the belt. Came back upstairs with the belt. Didn't take the belt off until he came down a second time, right?
Right.
You've been most helpful. Sit down. So, Mr. Joseph, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I'm sure that that's something that you heard at your mother's knee at some time during your life, and it's too bad that you didn't follow through. You started this incident on this job site. You started it. You started it by behaving irresponsibly with a very serious piece of equipment. And I'm not saying that Mr. Livingston, by responding and calling you names and cursing at you, was a gentleman. But boy, if somebody did that to me, let's just say this. Are you married?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have children?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are your children?
They're 10, 11, 12, 13.
Let's say a 15-year-old boy doesn't like your 10-year-old and has one of those dart guns and takes out one of those dart guns and starts shooting it in your son's direction.
May I defend your leading?
No, I want to ask you that question.
Actually, an incident happened to my son just the other day where he was beat up by 3 of the neighbor boys, and I walked over to the neighbor after just relaxing about it and talking to her, and said, I know that boys will do things, and he had a hurt rib and a bloody nose.
And you went over and said, I know that boys will do things.
Yeah,
Really?
They beat him up, and he was in tears, and everyone, you know, and I responded like, you know, I was in fear of my son, but an hour later I realized that he might have done something to begin with to do something, and then they might have taunted him or something like that, you know.
Really?
And I think they were both
You are such a good person. Somebody did that to one of my kids, boy, even joking around. I wouldn't like that, would you?
Not at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
I admit that I was angry at first, but I waited an hour and a half.
Well, you calm down.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you should have done.
Yes, ma'am.
So you got to pay for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Span versus Wilson. Step forward, please.
Janet Spahn, a 35-year-old housewife from Colorado, is suing her former babysitter, 18-year-old Eric Wilson. 2 years ago, Eric was arrested for stealing money from Janet's home. Now, Janet alleges more money is missing and believes Eric is to blame.
Order, all rise.
Your Honor, this is case number 163 on the calendar in the matter of Span versus Wilson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
All right, let me understand this case. Miss Spahn, this young man babysat for you, for your children.
Yes.
A couple of years ago.
Yes.
And at that time, he wasn't doing so well. You didn't know it at the time,
No, I did not.
but you had a drug problem,
Yes, I did.
and you had been involved in a series of criminal activity
That
that
is
you're not
correct.
proud of now, I understand.
That is correct.
You're his mother.
Yes, I am.
While he was babysitting for you, he stole some money,
Yes, he did.
and he was arrested and prosecuted.
Correct.
What was your sentence?
I got theft charges. I was ordered to pay restitution in the amount that she had requested.
How much was that?
It was $900, I believe, and it ended up being $1,200 after all of the fees and everything, all the victim assistance, all of that. And I paid that in full, and I was ordered to go on to probation. I finished all my probation stuff. I did my community service, paid all my restitution.
What kind of community service did you have to do?
Weekend work crew. I'd have to go up into the mountains and dig trails and stuff, and kind of.
And according to your complaint, Ms. Spahn, you found out that there was more money taken that was originally either reported or somehow the paperwork, the police paperwork,
Yes.
Was lost.
It was not in the actual record, the original record, which is, this is the original report, and this is the second report, which we did file within the statute of limitations, that showed the additional $900 was missing. Now, it was $1,100 originally, which we were paid the restitution after, the balance was paid, and this is the additional $900 that was missing, which is what I am here for.
Your neighbors.
Yes.
Ms. Spahn, if I find out that what this young man says in his answer is true, this is a sympathetic case on both sides. Because what this young man says, and his mother seems to confirm, is that in the last 2 years he has, in fact, turned himself around. Drug-free?
To a point, yes.
What do you mean to a point?
I've been working on it. I have been clean for about a month now.
What kind of drugs were you using?
Marijuana and alcohol.
You can't just work on that, sir.
Yeah.
You have to, after 2 years.
I know.
Stop.
It does take time, and it's kind of hard. It's
Well-
a difficult thing to do, and with the right people around me and the right kind of stuff in my head and not hanging around the bad crowd, I think I can do it.
Did you get your GED?
Yes, I did.
That says that you did here and that you scored rather well.
Yes, I did.
Have you been arrested in the last 2 years?
No.
Since this incident? You seem to say, the
Yes, he
smile
was.
on your face suggests to me that you know he's been arrested
Yes,
since.
he was. The officers actually called me at home.
When?
3 months later, my house was broken into. We assumed it was him, and the police called me to verify that he was arrested 2 days later. And that's when he went to the detention center up at Lookout Mountain.
I never went to Lookout Mountain. I did go to a detention center for a shoplifting charge, Mount View Detention Center.
Let's talk about the last year.
Okay.
Have you been arrested in the last year?
No.
You had to hesitate for a minute.
Well, I wasn't quite sure. I haven't been arrested. I haven't gone to jail or anything, no.
Well, I didn't ask you whether
I
you went
did
to
get a
jail. I asked you
ticket.
whether you were arrested.
I did get a ticket.
What kind of ticket?
Underage drinking.
Ms. Spahn, why is it, first, that that second amount of money, that $900, was not originally reported?
That was up to the sheriff that made the report out, and it explains it all here in this report.
Let me take a look at it.
Showing that the original $900 that was originally stolen was never made it onto this report. And that states it there.
How old are your children?
Almost 7, and the other one is 4.5.
So they were 2 and 5 when he babysat for you.
Actually, yes, around there.
Did he take good care of them?
Do I? Of course.
Did he take good care of
them? No.
But you used him as a babysitter frequently.
4 times.
And you were dissatisfied the first, second, and third time?
The third time.
The
And
third-
that's when we had found out that money started disappearing out of the house. I came home, my son had a bloody nose, he was in bed, he had blood all over his face and everything, and he had just left him. Obviously, he was going through my house at the time, rummaging through everything that I own.
You want to tell me about taking the money from her house?
Well, I was with my cousin, which was unmentioned to this point so far. He lived in Tennessee at the time, and I actually was not taking part in the theft of the money.
What do you mean you weren't? Listen to me. Mr. Wilson, I want to know. It's very important that when you answer questions that I pose to you, that you tell me the truth.
Right, I understand.
You understand that?
Yes.
I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to hear nonsense. I don't want to hear that you didn't take part in it. If your cousin was with you and you saw him take the money, and the reason he had access to her house is because you were there, then you're responsible. Do you understand?
Yes.
Is that the kind of excuse you were going to make to me?
No, not exactly.
Well, then I'll hear your excuse.
It's okay. I guess I'll just say I took it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I drive by their house.
And your dogs
I drive by their house, and their little kids flip me off.
Real people. Judge Judy. Janet Spahn claims her former babysitter, Eric Wilson, stole a large amount of cash from her house and wants him to fess up and pay her back.
Well, I'm being very serious with you. If your cousin was with you from Tennessee, which is what you say here, and that you took the rap for him.
I did.
But your cousin had access to her home through you.
Yes, she agreed. She agreed that my cousin could be with me when we were babysitting. She did agree to it. And when I got back the next day and when I found out the next morning that money was missing, I asked him, and we had gone shopping that night, and he had said he had some money left over. Let's go have a good time, you know. I didn't know it was stolen from her house.
But it had been stolen over a period of several days, not just one day. How many days was your cousin at the house with you?
I believe he did go twice with me.
Mm-hmm. You paid the restitution yourself. Did you ever try to get any money from your cousin?
No.
Why not?
Well, when my grandfather had died, my aunt and uncle, we were out playing basketball and stuff, and my uncle actually kind of assaulted me, so we haven't spoken to them since.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But you asked that your cousin could accompany you in this babysitting job, and she gave permission.
Yes.
So your cousin did have access to her home through you.
Correct.
All right. Now, she says there's an additional $900. Why did you keep so much cash in the house?
We had just sold a 1926 Model T in California here, and we had brought the cash home, and we had not deposited into the bank yet because we were having a carpenter come in to redo our basement. So he wanted to be paid cash, and it had only been 1 week that we had had the cash in the house.
Was the cash kept all in one place?
Yes, it was. It was in a sock rolled up in a locked bedroom behind a bed.
So how come you didn't know at one time how much was missing?
We knew that some money was disappearing. My husband was accusing me, and I didn't know where the money was at the time.
What do you mean, missing from the sock?
Yes, a little bit at a time. And then we put two and two together, and we had set up some tape in the bedroom door. So when the door had been opened and unlocked, that the tape would be stuck at the top of the door, which it was. He had entered the bedroom, and that sock was on the side of the bed with half the cash hanging out. That was the last night. That was when there was $1,100 taken out. That was one day. He took $1,100 out.
How much money in total was in the sock?
$4,000 total.
And how much was
$2,000 ended up missing. $1,100 was retrieved through court and through the money that he had left. He had used credit cards out of my purse and everything else.
Did you do that?
No.
Who did?
I have no.
I have a document right here.
Recollection of that.
Let me see what you have.
brought up a card.
Yeah.
It was done on the same day that he had stolen the $1,100. It was notarized and said that that somebody had tried to purchase video equipment, which is what he bought with our money when they retrieved it.
Did you find your credit card?
Oh, yes, I did. The credit card had not been activated yet. So that's why they notified us. So all these things happen within like a week.
Okay. Now, I'd like you to tell me why you don't think that you should be responsible for this additional $900, which I believe was missing.
Well, when she did originally say it, it did change. The amount of what was missing changed 3 different times. We told the judge this at the original trial or original hearing. I pled guilty to the charge. I paid my restitution in full. I paid what the judge ordered me to pay. I paid what she asked the judge to pay, the requested amount. I paid the requested amount. I got off of probation. I paid all my restitution. I filled my debt to society. I'm trying to get back on the straight and narrow, working hard.
Okay. Mr. Wilson, this report suggests that there was some sort of a snafu in the police paperwork, that the money was reported missing, but somehow missed it when it was ultimately presented to the court. So we're faced with a situation where this lady is going to be out $900, which seems to be unfair. And on the other hand, you seem to suggest that you're trying to get your life back in order. And the fact that you've paid your debt to society, which is what you say, doesn't necessarily mean you've paid your entire debt to this lady, because she's still out an additional $900.
I never saw that $900.
Well, whether you saw it or not, if somebody took the money, it wasn't her 2-year-old, it wasn't her 4-year-old, you were involved with drugs and alcohol at the time. I don't know what your cousin was involved with, drugs and alcohol, or maybe he's just a thief. But either you or he, through you, because that's how he got access to her home,
Correct.
took her property. Somebody has to pay for that.
Correct.
There is something else in this complaint that, however, that bothers me, Ms. Spahn.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She threatens to kill us and tells us she will not leave us alone until we move.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Eric Wilson says after he was arrested for stealing from his neighbor, Janet Spahn, he paid the money back to her. Now Eric says Janet won't stop harassing him and his family.
What bothers me is that you folks are neighbors, and there's a suggestion in the answer that there's a lot of hostility that's still going on now from your end. Your husband, you're angry, and you do things to
Certainly.
harass them. You have a boy and a girl?
No, I don't. I have 2 sons.
Miss Spahn, I assume that you let this young man babysit for you because you know his family, you know his mother. Did she always?
No, I did not.
Well,
we had just moved here. We had just moved to Colorado at the time, and I had asked his mother, assuming that she would, think that, if her son had good intentions to watch my children, if he did not, that she would not let him babysit. But she did, and she knew what his intentions were.
Well,
that was false on my part.
No, I did not.
Miss Spahn, I don't think that this lady knew what her son's intentions were.
I came over to their house and introduced myself, and they never even met my mother before I started babysitting.
Do you have other children?
Yes, ma'am.
How many other children do you have?
I have 1 daughter.
How old is she?
15.
She okay?
She's great.
She after any trouble with drugs, alcohol, school?
No, I think her brother's been a good example of a bad example, and she's everything against it because of that, whether that's good or bad. But she's very Christian and she's very straight.
Does your husband live in the house with you?
Oh, yes.
Do you work?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of work do you do?
I run a bank.
And what about your husband?
He works for the school district.
So, and you have a long work history? You've been
Yes.
working for a long time? How many years at the same job?
Well, I got promoted, so I went to a different position, but I've been in banking for 11 years.
And your husband, how long has he been working for the school system?
13 after he got out of college. He went right there, and he's been there for 13 years.
Let me tell you why I'm asking these questions, Ms. Spahn, so you'll understand. I've been around the family courts for a quarter of a century. And what strikes me as sad, has always struck me as being sad, you can expect a child to go off get involved in drugs, alcohol, criminal activity, if they come from a family that is dysfunctional. But what I've seen more and more of is families that appear to be perfectly functional families have a child that just goes bad. And you hope that that turns around. And you never know when that's going to happen. So what I'm suggesting to you is you have 2 young boys. As good a parent as you are, as good an example as you set for your children, as law-abiding as you are, work history for over a decade, right out of school, got a job, and working in the same job, that's this lady and her husband. I'm sure they try to set a good example for this young man, and they don't know what happened.
Something went wrong.
It happens.
I know.
You have to feel sorry for that. Because, but for the grace of God, it could be you.
Or my kids.
Or your kids.
That's right.
So while there's no question that I believe that this young man is responsible for paying you, for making you whole, I think it's a tragic mistake for you and your husband to continue what I will refer to as a minor vendetta against the family. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So this is a neighbor. This lady did not hope for the kind of problem that she's having with this boy. And I have a sense, from looking at her face, that it ain't over yet.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
You better straighten yourself out. Kids make mistakes when they're young, and they say, well, I have a whole lifetime to correct them. How old are you now, 17?
18.
18.
I just turned 18, and I was going to get my record sealed.
Well, you're not going to get your record sealed, sir, if you just got a ticket for underage drinking. That doesn't suggest to me a year ago or whatever, and you, Mr. Wilson, listen to me. You just told me 2 minutes ago that you've been clean for about a month. That isn't exactly a lifetime.
Right.
The mistakes you make when you're 15, 16, 17, and 18, sometimes you can't correct them because they create a lifelong habit. So you have choices that you have to make. And if you don't make responsible choices starting right now, sir, at age 18, you're going to suffer your whole life, and your mother's going to suffer her whole life, and your father's going to suffer his whole life. They ever do anything bad to you?
No.
Are they good parents?
Very good.
It's your responsibility now at age 18 to see to it that they have pleasure from you, not grief.
Right.
So you better start trying harder, much harder. All right, judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $900. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Here you are, ma'am.
Thank you.
And on the next Judge Judy.
Parties on Cox versus Tagliavore. Step forward, please.
20-year-old Wendy Cox is suing her uncle, 50-year-old Joseph Tagliavore. Wendy says before her grandmother died, she promised Wendy she could have her 1991 Ford Thunderbird. Joseph says the car should be sold and the money divided equally between him and his siblings.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise.
Your Honor, this is number 178 on the calendar in the matter of Cox versus Tagliavore. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat, please.
Miss Cox, this is your uncle.
Yes.
And who are you?
I'm Joe's wife.
Your grandmother, your mother, passed away.
Yes.
According to your complaint, your grandmother, with whom you enjoyed a lovely relationship, promised you
her vehicle, of whichever it may be, when she passed away, which is a 91 Thunderbird.
When did she make this promise to you?
This was, she had an 88 Thunderbird, I think it was 88 or 89, which my other aunt had received, and at the time I just turned 16, and she promised me then the white Thunderbird, which went to my aunt, who has children and needed a vehicle. So she always promised me that she would leave me her car.
You must have had a hot grandmother. She liked Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
So she passed away recently. according to your complaint, the only signed will makes no mention of that bequest.
No. It was also done in 77.
Could I bring up something, Your Honor?
You, sir, are the executor of the estate.
Yes, according to the signed will, yes.
And is there another will, sir?
Yes. This is a will that we received from a attorney that said that from the discussion I had with my sister, Deborah, which is Wendy's mother, that he had told her that...
Just, you can't tell me all these things. This is all hearsay. You received another will.
Yes.
That is unsigned.
That's the will.
Okay, and this was executed in 1992.
Yes.
All right, so let me understand this. We have a 1977 will which makes no mention, that is signed.
Yes.
And makes no mention of this car bequest. Then you have a 1992 will, which according to the plaintiff does discuss the car.
Yes.
Let me just take a look at it. Mr. Tagliavore, were you satisfied that your mother had, in fact, in 1992, had a change of heart, despite the fact that she didn't sign this will?
Yes, I didn't know it. Yes.
Could you sit down, please? Just sit down. The answer is yes. Evidently there was some dispute that your mother had with somebody else, and she, in fact, changed her will.
Yes.
But did not sign it.
As far as I know.
As far as you know, didn't sign it.
Right.
Is there anything that you know about that I haven't said yet?
Yes.
Go ahead.
In the hospital when my grandmother was dying, my husband, my mother, my uncle Bill, and her other son, and my mother, the executor on the second will, she was telling us that her phone book, bank receipts, her will, stuff for her funeral, everything was in her briefcase. We found everything except for her will, which then in her phone book in 2 different spots it is noted, Opendahl, the one that drew up the second will, is her attorney has her will. That's how they found him. This is her phone book.
It says in that attorney has will.
Has will.
Fine.
And I also have a letter from the attorney saying that he was the one that drew it up, and no, she never signed it, that it was her right to be able to take her copy with her, and it was up to her.
Ms. Cox, so then what I'm saying is accurate. Let's put
Yes.
this in order. We have a signed 1977 will, which you acknowledge does not make any bequest of this car to you. Were you
No.
born in 1977?
I was born in 76.
Okay, so you were a year old. She wouldn't have left you a car.
No.
Later, you both agree that your mother and your grandmother had the intention of changing her will to leave you the car, but she never fully executed the will, which means she did not have it signed and witnessed. That's according to you, madam, because you just told me that in her papers, in her book, it says attorney has the will. And if this is the will that you got from the attorney, it is unsigned, correct?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So here we have the problem.
This is a copy of the will from 1977.
I'll take a look at it. Mr. Tagliavore,
That's where
listen
I got
to me.
the address.
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
I think you were very honest with me a moment ago. I assume that you love your mother, and you know in your heart that she may have not been good at executing this 1992 will, but that was her intention, that your niece have this car.
My mother spoke to me in '96 in November.
Who are you?
I'm her daughter also. She called me in Kentucky, was calling me, and I brought up my will. She brought up her will. Nothing was ever mentioned. She said, I have 6 kids. If there should be anything left, we divide it equally. Nothing was ever mentioned once. Wendy didn't know. None of us kids knew that this other will existed. Mom never mentioned to not a one of us.
Fine, but it does exist.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I didn't care if I lost the car or not. It was
Come
a
on,
simple.
Wendy, come
you don't
on.
know. You do not know,
I know.
Joy.
You
no,
put
you
us
do not
through
know.
hell.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Wendy Cox says her grandmother promised she could have her Ford Thunderbird after she died.
But Wendy's uncle, Joseph Tagliavore, claims his mother's will says all of her possessions are to be divided between him and his siblings.
How much property did your mother leave?
The automobile was it, basically.
If you went to sell, sir, a 1991 Thunderbird, how much do you think you could get for it?
5,000 maybe.
Maybe.
6, maybe, depending on what kind of shape it was in.
Okay, well, what kind of shape is it in?
It's in very good shape.
Okay,
Low
so let's say,
mileage.
and there are 5 kids?
6.
6 kids. So let's make it easy for this old judge, because I'm not real good in math, as Bird can tell you. So let's say you can sell the car for $6,000. So everybody gets $1,000, right?
Right.
The laws in every jurisdiction require a will to be executed in a certain fashion. So we're talking here about a situation where the law, Ms. Cox, in this and practically every jurisdiction in this country requires that a will and any subsequent change of the will be signed and witnessed. Correct? On the other hand, we're talking about whatever is morally right with regard to this car. I believe that you two people know that it was your mother's intention for her granddaughter to have this car, for whatever reasons. I'm sure she has a lot of other grandchildren, but that's what she intended, for this car to go to this grandchild.
Well,
We're not talking about a lot of money here, Mr. Tagliavore. We're talking about at most $6,000 or $1,000 per person who would tend to inherit the money. So maybe we can come up with some way of being fair to your mother's wishes and also being fair to you, consistent with this will, which is unsigned.
Your Honor, I also have a letter from that attorney.
So what? I don't need the attorney. They don't dispute that. Ms. Cox, relax.
Okay, but...
Relax. They don't dispute
No,
that this...
I was just wondering if that would be... I know it's not signed. I'm just wondering if he
No,
can't
I
be a
don't read
witness,
letters
can
from
he?
attorneys. If you want a witness here, you have to have a witness here. Okay. What I started to say to you is perhaps we can come up with something that is fair, reasonably fair to each side. Would it be fair for Ms. Cox to have use of this car until she decides to sell it, and when she decides to sell it, the proceeds of the sale of that car distributed among the 6 of you? So that in some way, the last wishes of your mother would be honored. Would that be reasonable?
I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Well, I'm telling you, sir.
You don't understand the whole story, I don't believe.
Well, I'll listen to the whole story.
This started years ago when my mother first told me. She told me, you make sure that you take care of your brother James, which is on that will.
In 1977.
Long before then.
But
if anything happened to her, she said, you make sure that he gets his share of whatever is left because he will not take care of it himself. The money would mean a lot to him. It doesn't mean anything to me. My sister, nobody else in the family, you know, $1,000, like you say, is not much money.
So what's James's problem?
He's like one step from homeless, pretty much.
Is there something physically wrong with him, or does he have an alcohol or a drug problem?
No, he's partially disabled. He lives on state aid and stuff like that.
So he has money from Social Security disability.
Right. Which is not much.
I understand that.
$1,000 to him is a lot of money. And this is a promise I made to my mother. And then when this thing all started, as far as I was concerned, I thought my sister was supposed to be executor of this will, and this was all taken care of. She comes after my mother passes away. All the children come to my house. They say, we want you to take care of this. I told Mom in 1995 I wanted to be taken off as executor of the will. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. This was all news to me. So I agreed to do it. Then we started searching and finding stuff. Now this has turned into a total nightmare, and I'm the bad guy when the only thing I say there that is legally binding is that I have to do what the signed will says to do. Now, this is all the argument. This is all the bull that I have got from my family.
Sure, because
for doing what I was told to do by the law and asked to do by my siblings.
Well, you're right, Mr. Tagliavore. You, unfortunately, are placed in that responsibility because it's not just you, but you have 5 siblings that you have to deal with,
Right,
too.
and my sister Paula says there's another will that leaves her the car. An orthographic will that she cannot find. She cannot find witnesses to. There's wills floating all over this place. But
Listen,
none of them are signed
there are a lot
except
of
for
wills, but no
one.
property.
Right.
You know, a lot of wills, but one old
And there's
Thunderbird.
nothing but a car.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I did not want to
Sure
sue
you
him.
did, Wendy.
No, I
Yes,
didn't.
you did.
You don't
Yes,
know
you
me,
did.
Joy. You do not know me. This was the man I thought was my grandfather,
I've seen your
okay?
action.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Wendy Cox is suing her uncle, Joseph Tagliavore, over her grandmother's will.
So I would assume
So-
that you cannot speak for your whole family.
Oh, no, absolutely
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. What do you want to say?
It's funny that Mother never said anything to anybody, not even to Wendy or Debbie. Nothing was said till after the funeral. I mean, she didn't say anything.
No.
Wendy never said
Just a
anything.
second. Who didn't say anything?
Wendy didn't say nothing. Debbie didn't say nothing. Mom never said nothing.
Listen
That she
to
wanted
me,
Wendy
madam.
to have the car.
Listen to me, madam.
And I talked to her.
Listen to me.
Okay. I guess it doesn't matter. Whatever you want.
It doesn't. Let me tell you why it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
It upsets me.
Let me tell you why it doesn't matter. Very often when somebody is ill, or even before they're ill, when they are distributing their property by way of a will, and they don't want to create bad feeling while they're alive. They don't want one child to be angry with them or another child or a grandchild to be angry with them. They won't discuss what they're leaving in their will because they figure, when I'm dead, it don't make any difference. So they will not tell their children. Do you have children?
Mm-hmm.
You have children. Would you have felt badly when you spoke to your mother if your mother said to you, I'm leaving Wendy my only possession, my car? You would have been annoyed with your mother.
I wouldn't.
Sure you would have. And your kids and your children would have been annoyed. Why is Grandma just leaving? Is she the favorite? Why is Grandma just leaving Wendy the car and I don't get anything? Does that sound possible to you?
Well, if it's her, yes, possible, but if it was her wishes. Mom wasn't
No,
shy.
You don't, it's not a question of being shy. It's a question of not having your kids or your grandchildren annoyed with you while you're here to experience the feeling. Once you're gone, you're gone. Ms. Cox, you understand you have a problem.
Yeah.
And your problem is that even under the common law, which forms the basis of every law of every jurisdiction, a last will and testament was required to have some sort of a writing, at least signed by the, what we call them, the testator or the testatrix. That means the deceased. The only signed will that exists here that I see is one that was made in 1977. It doesn't make any mention of a car to you. Your uncle is not a bad guy. If he did anything else with this car, but do what it says to do in the original will, which is dispose of all my property equally among my children, he could be sued by the other siblings for a violation of his duties as executor of the will.
Thank you.
Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Well, that's unreasonable. That's unreasonable. I can't permit that to happen. My sense is he would like to do the right thing. But unless all of the siblings together say, you can turn the car over to Wendy because that's what Mom wanted, he can't do that. Do you understand? What I think is too bad is that if all the siblings understand that this was Mom's request, and all we're talking about really is $1,000 that you were concerned about for James, because that would mean a lot to him, well, maybe Wendy here would say, I'll give James $1,000, give me the car.
My mother, the executor on the second will, which my uncle is not even in.
There's no
agreed-
second will.
No, but
Wendy,
I know. Okay,
there's
so I'm
no
just saying.
second will.
All right. But my mom did agree to do that. My mom was willing to give my Uncle James $1,000 to make sure he was taken care of because she loves her brother. It has nothing to do with the Thunderbird.
This is a very good
For
lesson to everybody.
$1,000, this is ridiculous.
It's a very good lesson to everybody. None of us feel that tomorrow is our last day, so we all tend to put off taking care of business, which keeps things orderly and organized in our lives and prevents this kind of thing happening to a family. Usually when these kinds of things happen within a family, when somebody dies, you're talking about a lot of money. It's absolutely outrageous to me that this is doing this to a family when you're talking about a car, which is the only asset that your mother had. So people who don't take care of their business by keeping abreast of what property they have and how they want to dispose of it and making clear dispositions of that property before they die are not doing their families a favor.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Morally, Wendy, I believe that you are correct that your grandmother wanted you to have this car. Legally, you cannot establish that to me. Moreover, I honestly believe, after speaking to your uncle, that if he had his druthers, he would give you this car. If it was a question of, listen, either the car is mine or it's Wendy's, he would say, you can have the car. He is not in that position. He stands in what we call a fiduciary relationship to his other siblings. He represents them. Unless there is a unity of spirit in that, among those 6 siblings, unless all of them say, give Wendy the car, despite the fact that that's not what your signed will says, he can be sued by them, and it ends up costing him $5,000 or $6,000, probably more with attorney's fees, because he'd have to hire an attorney to defend himself, and you would maybe get the car. So don't blame him. It's not his fault. It's really, unfortunately, your grandmother's fault, because she did not take care of business when she could have in 1992 by signing this will and having a fully executed copy. So this lawsuit is dismissed. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out the back door to your right, please. Step forward, please.
45-year-old Thomas Lowe says he met his 23-year-old Filipino wife, Arlene Rowe, when he answered an ad in an international dating magazine. Thomas says when his new bride came to live with him in the United States, she charged a fortune in long-distance phone calls back to the Philippines. The marriage ended in divorce, and now he wants her to pay the phone bill.
Order. All rise.
Your Honor, this is number 173 on the calendar in the matter of Lowe versus Lowe. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
This is your former wife.
Yes.
And while usually the background of a couple's courtship, etc., is usually not germane to the issues of the case, I think that in this case it is. How did you meet your wife, sir?
Through correspondence. A friend of mine told me that about it. He hadn't met a wife overseas, and I tried it myself, and I wrote to Arlene, and she wrote back to me.
How did you get her name to write to her?
It was through a magazine that this gentleman informed me of. His name was Cherry Blossoms, and I wrote to her there, several other ladies too.
Did you advertise in this magazine?
My friend advertised me in there.
Your friend advertised for you? Okay. So you began to correspond, and then what happened?
She said she was about to go overseas to take a job, and at that particular time we had been corresponding for a year. And
Where was she living at the time?
In the Philippines. And I told her I was going to come to see her and not to go, that I asked her to marry me, and she agreed.
This was before you met her?
We had been corresponding. I told her I was going to go see her,
But
yes.
before you met her, you told her that you wanted to marry her?
Yes, and that's why I was going to the Philippines to see her.
You wanted to marry him?
Yeah, but before he told me about that, I supposed to have like my visa, it's already ready. Then I told him I have to go because I have my responsibility for my sister. So he told me, and he called to my mom, and he talked to my dad. Then he told to my dad that tell him not to go. I will be responsible for all his responsibility.
For all of your
Yeah, my visa
expenses.
is ready already. Then he told me to not to go.
How old are you?
I'm 23 right now.
How old are you?
45.
How old was she when you began this correspondence, Mr. Lowe?
I do believe she was 20.
Didn't you think she was a little young for you?
Oh, yes, I wrote and told her so. And she wrote back and told me no, she wasn't.
Well, you should have been older and wiser, sir.
Yes.
Because the thrust of your complaint is that while you're divorced now, she ran up phone bills in the amount of $3,400 to her mother.
Yes.
But he used my mom. Before that, he told to my mom and my sister because he's working with him.
You mean your family was working with him?
Yeah, they're working with him.
What kind
so
of
that's
work?
Why, because they have a correspondence. We have correspondence businesses. Then my mom was the one who's handling his business in the Philippines.
What kind of business?
It's like correspondence services.
Correspondence services?
Yes,
what
ma'am.
kind of correspondence services?
It's called Romance International.
What?
It's called Romance International. I developed my own service and run it on the internet.
Romance International?
Yes, run it on the internet. But, Your Honor, I did not call them for that. I sent them the pamphlets and everything in the mail.
But he told me it's okay to call to my mom. And you accept not only my mom, you accept the collect calls from your agent that I talk to them.
Miss Lowe, did you talk to your mother a lot?
Yeah, I talked to my mom.
Did you talk to her for a long time?
No.
When you would call her or when she would call you collect to talk to you, did you stay on the phone for a half hour? Sometimes longer?
Yeah. If I talk to him, if I talk to my mom, he talked to...
But mostly you talked to her?
Yes.
What happened when you started to get these big phone bills? Did he complain?
Yeah, he told me, but I pay for the phone bill when I started working. Then he told me I didn't pay for it. The first salary that I got from here, I pay for his phone bill. But he don't give me any money.
Mr. Lowe.
Yes.
What makes you think that I should order her to pay you money for this phone bill?
Well, first of all, Your Honor, she agreed when I was first initially going to take the phone out to pay for just the international phone calls. I didn't ask her to pay for anything else, just her phone calls and calls she made to the psychic for $195. That was all she was supposed to pay for. I gave her money every week, which I have records of, that went to the bank, which was taken out in the Philippines. So money was given to them every week for her responsibility, even when I was not married to her. When she agreed to marry me, I took care of her responsibilities in the Philippines. But in order to keep the phone on, she promised to pay just the international phone bills. That's all I asked. She never had to pay any other bills at the house.
Okay, so she didn't. So you got a divorce?
Yes. Well, no, the problem with the divorce was I wanted to move to Brentwood, and Mother told her no, she couldn't move to Brentwood with me, and she had to work her $4.25 an hour job. I was trying to get her a job paying $12 an hour, $15 an hour. I was ready to send her to school. I had taken out a $28,000 loan to take her to school, and the mother told her she couldn't go to school. She had to work.
No, my mom didn't told that. You want me to send to school. Then when they interview me, then they told me I have to study three years to pay $38,000. But you told them that, okay, after you finish your school, you're gonna pay me. I have to pay that for the rest of my life for $38,000.
So what you did you tell her that she was going to have to pay back the tuition?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Lowe.
The whole thing was I would have taken out the loan for the thing, and I was very willing to do that.
Mr. Lowe, you married a baby.
Your Honor, when I first married her, she did not strike me as a baby.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'm trying to be good in sex, but it takes time.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy.
Arlene Rose says when she came from the Philippines to marry Thomas, a man she met by placing an ad in a dating magazine, he treated her horribly and quickly divorced her. Now he's suing her for long-distance phone calls she made to her family.
In my untrained eyes, sir, this looks like a May-December romance.
Yes.
Did you ever hear that expression?
Yes.
And sometimes men marry women and they're very extravagant. They go out and they spend all their husband's money on jewelry and furs and manicures and pedicures and hats. Do women still buy hats? No.
Yeah,
No.
they do.
Your child bride called her mother a lot.
No, her mother called her.
Or her mother called her a lot. Because she evidently needed to talk to her family, very far away from her family. That's what happens when you marry somebody who's very young.
No, Your Honor, the reason they called was because her family kept getting into financial problems.
But you know that. You already know all my responsibilities.
Listen, Miss Lowe, I gather from your answer that you feel as if you have a very strong responsibility to family, even your family in the Philippines. What's supposed to happen when you get married is you're not supposed to necessarily lose that allegiance to your family, but you and your husband create your own unit. You have a mother in the Philippines, you have a father in the Philippines?
Yeah.
Yes? You have sisters?
Yes.
You have brothers?
Yes.
They're supposed to take care of themselves. That's not his responsibility.
Yeah, he told me that's not his responsibility.
It's not. And it's not your responsibility. You're a baby, 20 years old. You got a mother, your father, brothers, sisters, everybody else in the Philippines. All of a sudden, because you got married, you married somebody who maybe had an extra couple of bucks, that doesn't make your family in the Philippines your financial responsibility. When you're married, this is your financial responsibility, but you're not married anymore. I'm just telling you that for the future, because otherwise you're going to be a very unhappy lady the next time you get married. You
Yeah,
can't.
I didn't told him to responsibility for my family. I told him I have to send my sister on school. So that's my responsibility.
Why do you have to send your sister to
Because
school?
I'm the second to the eldest.
And what about your mother and father?
They work a lot for my brothers and sisters. And like that time, my father are sick, so I have to go to work.
So
and
what
like
you're
he
telling
knows
me
all
is,
all of that.
so what you're telling me is that you had to work here and send money back to your family in the Philippines? Is that what you're telling me?
No. I came here as to his wife, to be his wife. I came here 6 months. I worked for him. In American Embassy, he told that even I came here, I still receive any salary from his business, but I don't get any single penny. He gave me $10, $20. The first time he gave me is $20. And the last one before we leave is he gave me only $10. And like he told me, I always stay in the house. I work for him, I work for his business. I only sleep for 4 hours to work in his business. Then like, I don't get anything. I clean the house, I do everything. And like I told him, he have 1 week salary for $1,000 or $2,000. Then I work for 2 weeks to $200, $300. But I give him all my first salary. So I told him, did I ask you any money from your salary? I didn't even touch your money. Even we have joint account.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Arlene Rose says when she came from the Philippines to marry Thomas, a man she met by placing an ad in a dating magazine, he treated her horribly and quickly divorced her. Now he's suing her for long-distance phone calls she made to her family.
Mr. Lowe, you made a mistake.
Yes.
I believe that your former wife probably made a mistake. Is it your intention to go back to the Philippines? Or are you going to stay here in the United States?
I have to move on to my life. That's all I want.
So what do you want to do? Where do you want to live?
I have to settle all my problem here.
What kind of problems do you have here, Miss Lowe? Other than this one is I'm going to make a non-problem for you. What other problems do you have?
About the status I have
You
in
mean
this.
your visa status?
Yes, Mom.
Do you want to stay in the United States, or do you want to go home to the Philippines?
I don't know if I can survive. Maybe I'll survive because I work for 2 jobs. I work 7 days.
You
and
work
I
2 jobs now?
jobs. Yes, Mom.
You send money home to your family?
Sometimes. But I have to settle all my bills.
What other bills do you have?
I have to pay for my lawyer.
Which
I
lawyer?
have to pay for my car and my insurance.
What lawyer do you have to pay for?
For my case.
You mean for your immigration case?
Yes, Mom.
Are you okay financially, Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
You think
Well, actually, no, Your Honor. I've got, from our marriage, we've got major bills. We've got about $24,000 in back debt.
For what?
Some of it, a lot of it is mine. Then there's $9,000 between the tax stuff that I put off to help her family when I gave her money to help her family, $3,000, and put off paying taxes that I was supposed to pay the taxes
That's
with.
your problem. That's your problem.
Yes.
Mr. Lowe. I don't think she was, except for her phone bills, I don't think she was a very expensive lady to keep. Right?
No, Your Honor. I paid her a salary every week, and the records show I was putting $180 to $200 a week for her to send back home, and I have records for that.
Did you send back that money home?
No, because he owed my mom's money. Because when he sent some money from me, he told me that's my allowance as his wife. But I spent that money on his business. I told him about that.
Mr. Lowe, who initiated the divorce proceedings here in California?
She left the house, so I tried to reconcile with her. I initiated the divorce proceedings.
You got it. See how fast he's a quick study. And did you have anything in the divorce proceedings about this $3,400 debt?
Yes, Your Honor.
And
She
what
agreed
was
to
that?
pay for it. It's
Where-
a marital agreement.
Do you have that in writing?
Yes.
Can I see it, please?
This is the one.
She has it.
Oh, jeez.
When he gave that papers, he already signed the papers. Then the one that he told that to sign it, and I bring it to my lawyer, the second agreement. Because he changed the agreement that it says $3,400 to pay for 30 days. Then he want me to sign that papers.
Just a second. Is there another paper?
Yeah, we
That,
have
Your Honor,
another.
because of the first, we had the first original marriage agreement, and it wasn't notarized. That's why I have to come here now. And because it wasn't notarized, I had to get a second agreement done. I took that to her job. She said she had to go see her lawyer again with that. She never came back with that. We were forced to use the first agreement.
Let me see your judgment of divorce, sir.
This one.
She has it.
I want to see if it refers to this settlement agreement. Oh.
The first agreement wasn't notarized, Your Honor. That's why they could not use that agreement in the court. That's why I had to come to small claims court, because it wasn't notarized before the first of the year.
But Mr. Lowe, you have to understand something, sir. I like to see the right thing happen at the end of a case, because that's what I think that's supposed to happen in court. And if you show me an agreement and you say it's incorporated in your judgment to divorce, I have no choice, and I've explained that to your wife. I have no choice but to give you your judgment for $3,400, even though I don't feel good about it. I don't think she's, I don't think she's stupid, but I think that she was vulnerable, certainly more vulnerable than you are. So I feel sort of badly about having to make a judgment against her for $3,400, considering that she works 2 jobs and trying to maintain herself and send money home for her sister to go to school. I mean, that's hard. But now I have an out. Whew.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
You say here, sir, we have no community assets or liabilities.
The second, yeah.
That's what it says here.
Community assets liability, yes.
That's what it says. You have no community assets or liabilities.
That was before, when we first signed that agreement, that was before all the taxes came. So that's when we tried to make the second agreement.
This is dated November 7th.
Yes.
This is dated in October.
Yes, I could not use the first one.
You can't use
That's
it
because it wasn't notarized.
So it wasn't notarized, so what am I supposed to do?
That's why when I went to court, the judge said if I wanted to settle this, I had to then take her to small claims court.
Okay, so now, so it's not part of the judgment of divorce, so I'm not bound by another court's ruling.
No,
that
you're
it's
not.
part of another. All right, then that's very easy. Mr. Lowe, your wife is 23 years old?
Yes, Mom.
You're 45 years old. You're a man of the world. She's not. She was extravagant in the way she made phone calls. You have money? Not a lot, probably, but certainly more than she does.
Yeah,
That be a fair statement? I'm not going to burden her with another debt of $3,400. This case is dismissed.
All right, excused. You may step out.